Hi there, this is Muna once again and welcome to RTD Videocast. So in today's video, I'm going to show you how you can access your home router from different location. So let's get started. Okay, so let us assume I am out of town and for some reason I want to access my home router. So this is how it's going to look like. I will take out my phone and turn on the mobile data. Then open up any web browser of my choice. And in the Omni box, type in this special URL. And there we go. As you can see, I can access my router login page even though I am in a different city. But Mrinal, this is cool if you're a geek, but why would an average user would do that? What are the use of it? Well, surprisingly, this is even useful even for a normal user, and here are some use cases. For instance, let's say you are a parent and want to check if your children are playing game in their PC instead of doing their homework. So you can easily do that by going to the DHCP client list and then see the list of all the connected devices. Similarly, if you live with your roommates, then you can remotely find out which one of your friends are at home, since their smartphone will auto-connect to the same network. Or if you find your neighbors stealing your Wi-Fi, then you can disconnect them from your network even when you are not at home. And finally, if your router supports a USB drive like this one, then you can also connect an external hard drive to your router and then access all the content of the drive from all around the world. I do this all the time when I am away from my workstation. Now at this point, some of you may be wondering, well, this can easily be done with help of TeamViewer or any similar remote desktop application. So why should I play with the router instead? And well, you're right, you can do this with TeamViewer or any similar application. But the biggest advantage of using this method is that if you're using TeamViewer, then you will have to keep one host computer turned on all the time. But in case of router, well, router are always turned on at 24/7. Plus, you don't have to install any software on either of the device. All you need is a web browser and you can access your router from any device all around the world. Now this entire setup will take less than 1 minute. But before we go into that, we should first understand how exactly things are working here. So for that, let's take an example of a typical home network. So let's say there are some devices which are connected to the internet with the router. Now, as we know, whenever a device is connected to the internet, a IP address is assigned to it. So in this case, the public IP address will be assigned to your router, and your router will then assign local IP addresses to each of the connected device. Now here comes the interesting part. Anytime you want to access your router from the inside your network, then you will have to type in the router IP address from the connected device. However, if you want to access your router from outside the network, then you will have to type your public IP address followed by the remote control port number, which is 8080. But there are two problems here. One, as a part of security measure, every router by default has this remote access turned off. And two, well, most home users are assigned dynamic IP address, which means every time you restart your router, your public IP address will also change. So in a nutshell, if you want to access your router remotely, then you will have to solve two problems. One, you will have to turn on remote sharing from your router setting. And second, you will have to figure out a way to bypass this dynamic IP address. For that, we will use services like Dynamic DNS. So let's take a look at this method one by one. Okay, so turning on remote sharing is pretty simple. Start by logging into your router. To do this, you will need a default gateway. Now, if you don't know how to find it, simply open up your command prompt or terminal and then type in the command that you can see on the screen right now. Now, the IP address next to the gateway is the router's IP address. So simply copy it and then paste it in the Omni box of your browser. Next, you will have to enter the username and password. Again, if you don't know what the username and password are, then simply ask the person who has set up your network. Okay, now once you are in, you may find your interface little bit different from mine, but the basics always remain same. So here you will have to look for the option which says remote sharing. Mine was under system tools. But in case you don't find this option, then you can always look for the router's documentation. I also did the same thing. Now once you are there, simply enable the remote management and save changes. By default, the port number is 8080, but as a security measure, you should definitely change that. Also remember to change your login credentials to something complicated, or anyone can log into your network with simple brute force attack. Now let's check it. I will use my mobile data to make sure I am on a different network. Then type in my public IP address followed by colon 8080, which is the port number for remote sharing. And as you can see, here is the router page. But there is one small problem. How can you find your public IP address when you are not at home? And also it keeps on changing every day. So let's solve that in part 2. Now there are several companies that provides Dynamic DNS service, and usually your router manufacturer has a tie-up with some of them. So the best way to find out which service should I choose, you should check the router page. So here once you log into your router, you should look for the option which says Dynamic DNS. Now in case your router do not support Dynamic DNS, which is highly unlikely, but in case if it's not there, then you can still get it working. All you have to do is download the IP updater software from the service itself and then put it on a computer, which is turned on most of the time. Now this router supports two services, DNY DNS and NoIP. Now since the first one is paid only, I will go with NoIP. So go to noip.com and create a free account. Then add a new host name and select the domain name of your choice. If you want, you can use a custom domain name as well, but then you will have to pay for it. So let's go with the free subdomain name for now. Here you can also download the IP updater software and put it on a frequently used computer. Now copy your domain name and paste it in the router settings. And also enter your username and password that you have used while logging into the service. And then save the changes. Now if I want to see my router from a different location, all I have to do is type in the domain name that I have used in NoIP followed by the port number, which is 8080. And there we go. Now I can log into my router from any location. Well, this is all for now. Like always, give this video a thumbs up, leave a comment and subscribe to this channel if you find this video helpful and want to see more of them. And also check out the other videos on networking. So with that being said, this is Mrinal signing off, and like always, thanks for watching.